I started trying to explain to myself that surely there's a reason of why I'm changing.
Yes.
And then I started talking to other people that had been there longer, and they're like, oh, no, nope, we have the same nightmares. It's always that we're trapped. Nope,
Mm,
anger issues. It's always the same lies. It's always the same nightmares. Everybody that I asked, they have the same thing.
right.
And that's when I came to my room and I told the Lord, this is it. I did not come to serve you to be defeated and think this is normal. God, this cannot be normal. Your blood is enough. Your blood is enough for the spiritual attacks. Show me how to live in victory.
Hi guys, welcome back to Raw Mission. In this podcast, we want to take you on a journey into places and communities around the world where the good news of Jesus is not known. We want to show you what God is up to, how his kingdom is expanding and growing, even in the most unlikely places. Many of you come from gospel-saturated countries, with churches and followers of Jesus in huge numbers, and the Bible easily available. But the places our guests have chosen to live and serve in are quite the opposite, and there's often great resistance, suffering and danger for them to face. I'm Matt, your host, and today we'll be hearing Ria's story. Now, as with many of our guests, for security reasons we've had to disguise Ria's real name, and the country she's working in, and even the country she's from. But you'll still be able to get a great inside view of what it's been like for her to serve in this troubled northern African country. She'll be sharing stories of doing triathlons in her past and evangelistic trips into the Peruvian mountains, a successful youth ministry in her home church, and then the call to Africa, where she had to learn quickly how to deal with various spiritual attacks and a very different and quite dangerous environment. Well, hi, I've got Ria today with me. Ria, so good to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Great. Ria, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background? Where did you grow up? And something of your faith story.
Okay, so I am from Central America, and I was born and raised in one of those colorful countries over there. And I was able to go to the US to study and for college. And I was blessed to really be born in a Christian home. My parents come from an atheist background. And actually, my mom's father was from Yemen. And he moved to our country when he was 14. So really, he hated religion. And he forced everyone in his family, including my mom, to never believe in God because he believed that countries made up religion to control. Of course, coming from that country, we kind of understand where he was coming from. But a horrible event happened in the life of my mom at the age of 16 that led her to go to an evangelistic crusade of the Baptists when she was 19. And it was a massive sign in the streets of her college that said, if you want to know happiness, come to our meeting at 7 p.m. She said, I've actually never felt happy.
Wow.
What is this about? And she went to this crusade and she gave her life to Jesus. And she started serving him and got into their groups in the church since she was 19. And late 20s, she married my father, who was also Christian. And so I was really blessed to be born in a home where, since I was born,
that's such an interesting story.
Him.
So with these, I'm just a little bit interested, this sort of crusade meeting, the evening meeting, was that by, local Central Americans, just from the church that ran that? Or was that folks coming in from the outside?
No, it was from Americans. They were workers in that country, and they had massive churches and massive crusades. And we are so blessed. If I look at my nation, the biggest churches in my nation really are from workers from America, or other countries. And really, those are the ones that paid a big price of a lot of persecution years and years and years ago to start big ministries. And now the result is that we have been for generations hearing the gospel in our countries because of them.
Cool.
So yeah.
So your whole story is just a mix of different cultures and then different workers crossing over to your nation to bring the gospel, and now that's exactly what you're doing overseas. So, what did you study at college?
So I went to Bible school,
And that was a good
and
experience. So that was in the States, was it?
that was in the States.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, I went to Bible school because when I was 11, so the church I grew up in was very much driven for like missions.
Mm.
Um, and when I was 11, I went to my first trip and it within my country. And at the end of the trip, God spoke to me and he said, "This is what you will be doing for the rest of your life."
Mm.
And ever since then, I remember that I just knew I couldn't do anything else but to share his story and to share his word. And I just knew that was the only thing that I was born to do.
Wow.
And I just never had a doubt. So,
Mm.
I knew that right after high school, I was to go and get ready for that. And I was sent to go to the States and go to Bible school.
Gosh, that's so interesting. And I mean, did you think it during those teenage years or your early 20s? I mean, did you think, okay, I'll be sharing God's word, but it could be in the regions of Central America, South America, North America, or did you always think actually I might be going further afield across the world?
My heart was always to go somewhere in the 1040 window.
Mm.
Always, that was always my heart. And it was because when I was 15, I was at a youth conference and the person that was sharing, he made a call and he said, anybody that is called to the nations but doesn't know which nation, which people group, I want you to stand up. He will show it to you tonight. And I
Wow.
stood up because I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I remember I was 15 and all I heard was 1040 window. And I had no idea because that
Huh.
is something that is never talked about where I grew up in my church. And so I was really confused to get a number. And so then I
Wow.
looked it up and I realized it was that group of people within those countries. And so, to tell you the truth, I really thought that right after Bible school, I would go straight to one of those countries. And
Mm.
it didn't happen like that. He actually sent me back to my continent. And every time I tried to come to this side of the world, he would close the door and send me even further down into my continent
Oh,
to
wow.
to my language speaking people. And I was so frustrated with that.
What is your first language?
Spanish.
Spanish. Okay. Gosh, that's really interesting. And I suppose just because there will be some of our listeners who don't know what the 1040 window is, and it's all to do with the degrees of latitude. But I suppose the easiest way to describe it is that's a whole block of countries going from northwestern Africa, right across through the Middle East, perhaps Central Asia, into South Asia, and even Southeast Asia a little bit, where most of the world's unreached peoples live. So yeah, do Google that, listeners, if you're not sure what that is. It's just such a key part of the world for the gospel. What we sometimes call gospel starved or gospel deprived countries. Yeah. So what
Yeah.
happened next in your story then? Okay, you're sort of ministering in and around the Spanish speaking world, the Latino world, but hoping to go into the 1040 window, much further east.
Yeah. In my heart, it was always the unreached people. So I thought, if I can't get to that side of the world, then I will go to the unreached. And the Lord spoke to me. He said, "Okay, so if you know I have called you to that group of people, what are you doing to your physical body that will prepare you to that, to get to those places?" And I said, "Well, I guess not much, because I was reading and praying a lot, but
Mm.
physically I wasn't really getting ready." So I joined a running club, and then I joined a cycling club,
Oh.
and I became a cyclist and I became a runner, and then I joined a triathlon team. And all of a sudden, my life was surrounded by really intense sports that I was investing hours and hours of the day
Mm.
into training. I was very confused, but the Lord kept telling me,
Mm.
"I need you to do this. I need you to do this." And I said, "Okay." So I did. And then he started taking me to the really high mountains of, some parts of Peru and some parts of, like they were so high and we would have to walk 8 hours carrying lots of things that we were bringing to communities, but cars didn't go in. And we
Mm.
would preach in every community that we would, spend the night in and stuff. So I look back and I thought if I hadn't had that training, I wouldn't have been able to get to those places where cars can't really take you,
Wow.
um, especially carrying everything that we were carrying because we were
Yeah.
taking blankets or wheelchairs or whatever.
Gosh, that's so interesting. I've never even thought about that. I mean, I know that I think in the old days, in some of the sort of missionary training colleges, they would do physical exercises and get people up early, and just to I suppose, yeah, to think about living in hard climates and tough
Yeah,
environments. But these days, yeah, I suppose most people think of training as spiritual and mental and educational things, but that's actually really you got me thinking there. But yeah, definitely
yeah,
if you're going to the mountains. That makes a lot of sense, certainly in your story. Huh. Okay, what happened
yeah.
after that then? I mean, I suppose what did you learn in those years of going around in the Spanish speaking world about yourself, about mission, about God?
Um, I think one of the things that I'm so grateful about is for that specific season. That's a really good question. Thank you for
Mhm.
asking. I think I was blessed to be able to see so many types of worship to God and devotion. Because I think it could be very frustrating when you think there's only one right way to live for God and to have ministry for God and to disciple people. If you stay in a big city with a mega church, then that's the right way. It's like you get in a bubble and you think this is the only way. But
Yes,
then
that's right. One
me going
denomination,
to
one style of church, yeah, one
exactly.
form of evangelism, yeah, that just doesn't work around the world. Yeah.
It really doesn't. And then me being able to work with different types of denominations that required me at such a young age when I was like, I mean, I was only 20 when I started doing that. And so me doing that, going into places where sometimes they ask me, okay, but you have to wear a long skirt this time with a veil. That's in Central America. And in these
Wow.
churches where I'm hiking and I'm carrying all these things, they're like, okay, but they can't see you wearing pants. You have to wear skirts.
Right.
But me coming from a city where we're wearing skinny jeans or ribbed, well, I had to change. I used to joke with my parents because I was like, okay, this closet is for this place and this closet is, like I just had, it almost felt like costumes, that I had to put on anytime that I went to different places. And one time, one of my friends told me, aren't you tired of that? Why don't you live at your age? Why don't you enjoy having fun? And I remember telling him, to me, first of all, that this is amazing and fun. But second, I don't care to lose my outfits or my fashion for the sake of the gospel. Uh, Clothes don't make me who I am. And I think if I wouldn't have had that experience, I think I would have been so frustrated living where I am now. And I've heard it so many times. I mean, so many women get very frustrated by the way they need to dress in these countries. But God gave me this opportunity to learn since I was 20, going into indigenous people that I had to wear veils to pray and long skirts where we don't do that in most churches back in the city. But I think I learned to appreciate the different styles of worship. And I thought, surely God is not looking down from heaven saying, oh, they didn't dance right. Well,
Yeah,
that doesn't count.
exactly.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it gave me grace to enjoy every style.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I often say to people, whatever you're going through while you wait for God's calling on your life to sort of be fulfilled, if you feel a strong sense of calling, then sometimes that waiting period is hard, but it's never wasted. Everything that's happening to you, in you, through you, that's God's work. It's His preparation. He's the best trainer. He knows where we'll end up.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you. That's really helpful. There's a lot there actually about identity and security in Christ, isn't there? And not just in the outward
yeah,
things of the world, in who we are. So, yeah, that touches on some great stuff. Okay. So, yeah, you learned a lot about people of God, expressions of worship, contextualization, I suppose, wearing different clothes. And then how did that develop then into being where you are now?
Well, I'm actually glad that you mentioned the period of waiting
Hmm.
because it took me 11 years to get to where I actually wanted to go
Okay.
and where I felt that God was calling me to be. And I remember talking to my pastor, my mentors, and saying, man, I just really want to get there. I know what I saw. I know what I heard. I know that I wasn't crazy. I know that he spoke to me. And I remember my pastor saying, he's so wise. And he told me, yeah, but it's easier to guide a boat that is already in movement instead of
Hmm.
just being stuck on the shore. So you just keep on serving in any area that you have in front of you. And one day it will lead you to where you need to be. And I think those words have really stuck with me. And I thought, okay, then I will continue to move and do whatever that I have in front of me. And that I just learned a lot. And so it was amazing to look back and see, wow, if I wouldn't have gone through all of that, I don't think I would have made it here.
Yes, that is such a good word too, because often people think, well, I'm waiting for a voice or a very strong direction. But you're right. Sometimes you just have to take steps, take the next steps, the ones in front of you, where whatever God's put in front of you there, or maybe just start exploring. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how it
Yeah.
how it develops into when you left for the field. But you're right. We've got to sometimes just keep moving, and the Lord will steer and guide as we step out in faith, whether that's into service or whether that's into exploring teams and how to get
Yeah.
overseas or organizations. Okay, yeah, carry on.
Then a lot of people started criticizing me for doing a lot of exercises. And they would say, like, okay, yeah, but why do you have to be so involved in exercise as well? And I was already, I had this ministry of evangelistic crusades. That's what I did in my town. And it was specifically for youth. So I had a team and it was amazing. It was going really great. We had great results and the youth were coming to our church and they were being discipled. And then for the unreached, I had prepared a curriculum to prepare pastors because they don't have ways to get to the cities. So we would do USBs or flash drives to take them to train other pastors and then have so many churches in the mountains to prepare good pastors because we saw a lot of abuse because they didn't know anything. So I was doing those two things and I was preaching and right when I'm in the middle of what I could say or what other people thought it was success, I am invited to go to a retreat for missions.
Hmm.
And I thought, sure, but I wasn't interested anymore because it had been 11 years. And I was so happy with what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so busy. And
Yeah.
I was seeing so much fruit that I thought maybe my way of reaching that group of people is through finances. That's
Mm-hmm.
cool. Okay, well, I'll never go, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when I'm invited to this retreat, the workshop was specifically about using sports to reach women in this 1040 window.
Wow.
And I thought, really, I've been criticized my whole life. And now what God spoke to me many years ago could actually be the way to impact women there. I never thought about it. And I thought, okay. So uh, I was part of this workshop that was actually, inviting people to be part of this to impact women through sports. And I thought, I want that.
Mm.
I didn't know, but I don't want to be heartbroken again. So I'll just support them financially. Other
Mm.
women can go,
Okay.
not me.
Mm.
I already have this and it's okay. But the more I thought about it, it grew in my heart and God spoke to me and said, it's time. You are part of that women that will touch other women through exercise. And so I thought, okay, so I joined and I prepared, and here I am. It all happened in 7 months.
Gosh, wow, that's really interesting. Actually, just this weekend, or earlier this week, I was preaching on Philip and the Ethiopian, and he was seeing such fruit in Samaria. This is Acts chapter 8. And God was doing great things. The apostles had come up from Jerusalem to see what was happening amongst the Samaritans. And then the Lord suddenly just called him away down to meet the Ethiopian, because that was what God wanted next, the gospel to go out to Africa. And it's such a beautiful passage in so many different ways, actually. But just the idea that he was loving his life, Philip, before the Lord called him to the desert road where it could have been pretty dangerous. And that was one of the things that just struck me. And that's similar for you then. Yeah, leaving behind a big church, big family, probably ministry, all the things you'd got used to. And then
Yeah.
suddenly on a plane. Yeah. Okay. So then where did you end up?
So I am in North Africa.
Hmm.
I am in the desert.
Just like the story. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when did you arrive there? How many months ago?
I've been here for 10 months.
Okay. And tell
And
us all about it. What was it like landing there? Was this your first time to Africa, or had you been outside sort of the
no,
Americas?
it was my first time. It was my first time on this side of the world. And of course, it brought a lot of challenges leaving all of that behind because a lot of people thought you're crazy.
Mm,
Why, why would you do that? That's not God. You're not hearing God. That's definitely you're losing it. There's no way. And I was once again encountered with, so many opinions by the people that love you. They mean well, and their heart is that they want to protect you.
yes.
But of course, it can confuse you. But I knew this is my opportunity. This is what I've been waiting for 11 years, and I have the confirmation. And so I arrived, and then the second thing that shocked me was everybody that I meet that comes here, they have a business background or they know what they're doing with an ability to live among, the city or the nation or whatever. And I started thinking, my Lord, I all I've ever done is preach. What do I have to offer? I have nothing to offer because I can't really say that I went to Bible school here, and I can't use the tools that I only know how to do. And I felt so insecure and I felt so scared because I thought, what if I wasted my time? Maybe I should have gone to college. Maybe I should have prepared better. Maybe I didn't hear him because I have nothing to offer in the sense of business or, a degree. And so that was, I think, the first thing that was so hard to overcome, of what do I have to offer, because I have nothing else because I've never done anything else that could work here. That was what I kept telling myself. That of course, I've been using the exercise obviously to to be here, and that's part of my job, and it's been really good.
Okay, so yeah, tell us a little bit about that. Have you started a sort of small business then, or just doing volunteering
No,
on?
I work for a business. I work for a institution that is about sports, and so that's what I do. And I
Mm.
teach classes of exercises,
Ah,
HIIT workouts, yoga, or football.
yeah.
Teaching
Ah,
all ages.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. It's so strange for some of our listeners to think, wait, you've had all this experience, in church life and ministering and preaching the gospel around, Latin American countries, your own and others, and yet you felt unqualified to be a worker overseas. That makes no sense in some ways. I understand it because within Frontiers, so many of our folks have to think, okay, well, what's my work going to be? What's my identity going to be in a Muslim country where you can't be, a missionary, or you can't be a gospel preacher on the street or something like that. So we do have to sort of rethink what that might look like, in the different contexts. So yeah, it's really interesting. And how have you found then the overlap between your sports ministry and your gospel ministry, and how does that work? What does it look like day to day?
Yeah, it's well, first of all, I had to recognize that it was a lie and from the enemy. And just like a doctor that is so prepared in his degree, I started finding out that everybody struggles with the same lie of feeling unqualified and feeling lost and feeling the questions of, am I really doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And I started meeting people in their 50s and people in their 30s and people in their 20s and their 40s and 60s. And they all have the same thoughts and emotions. And I thought, okay, so that's the enemy always lying to us about the same thing. And one of the ways that I started finding out, how can I sow the seed? How can I use my tools that I had back home in my classes of sports? I started telling Bible stories in my stretching part. So I do a really hard workout for depending on how long the class is. So some classes are 40 minutes, some classes are 35 minutes, and some classes are 50 minutes. And I give the workout for most of the class. And then the last 10 minutes of the stretching and breathing, I tell them a story of the Bible, usually a parable that Jesus taught. And then when I tell them that, of course, I don't tell them, in the Bible it says, I just tell them the story.
Yeah.
And I ask them questions. What did you understand about this? What did you think about this? And to tell you the truth, the people that pay less attention in my classes, the people that seem to be so rebellious, are the people that are so interested and intrigued by the stories of the Bible. And
Yeah.
it's so sad because I had been preaching. I should know. I went to Bible school. I've been preaching. I should know that the word works, but I don't think it hit me until I came to this country and I realized that these people have no background in the word. And the minute they hear the word, their faces change completely.
Mm.
Their reactions, their eyes. It's something I've never seen before. And in our churches, we are so trained to react, to respond, to say, amen, yeah, come on, like depending on what kind of church you are,
Yeah.
at least a smile,
Yeah.
you know. And we're trained. So sometimes we don't know if it's genuine.
Mm.
Sometimes it's just our culture to do that.
Right.
But I know that these people, they're not trained because some of them never met a Christian. Some
Mm.
of them have never even seen our book. And the way they react to the stories, I can see that is real. That has been so transforming to me.
Mm.
That has allowed me to honor the word a lot more than I did before.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
That's great. I love it. Yeah, the power of storytelling, testimony stories, listening to their stories. And I'm sure there'll be many conversations you have with your students afterwards, after classes, people who come and seek you out, like Nicodemus did with Jesus.
Yeah.
What were you saying? What does that mean? Yeah, I'm sure you have. And then you can build relationships outside of class too with people and then meet up separately, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Mm. Now, we haven't talked much about who you're there with. I mean, you are with our organization Frontiers. So did you meet and find out about the team while you were back in Central America, or did you just sort of, I guess somebody must have said, yeah, there's a good team in the country you're thinking of, and you met them on Zoom and then just arrived. How's it been for you, team life or your living situation? Or
Right. So it was actually through that retreat in Central America.
Hi, folks. We have a new way that you could help us out at Raw Mission. Besides writing us a review or giving us a 5-star rating, if these stories that we're sharing are impacting you and encouraging you in your faith and ministry, could you send us a 10 to 20 second audio message? Just tell us your first name, what you like about the show, and how God is speaking to you through it, and where in the world you're listening from. We know that we have listeners in about 100 nations, so we'd love to hear from you. Perhaps you could also tell us what your favourite episode has been. You could use one of the free file transfer websites, or just send an audio file to matt@frontiers.org.uk. Thanks, guys, and now let's get back to the podcast.
When I went to that retreat and it was the workshop of sports reaching women, it was through that person that was giving it that I realized there was a group of people from Central America that were wanting and needing more people to come and be part of that
Mm.
vision.
So you
And
joined her team, did you?
yes, yeah,
Wow, that's great.
they're in Central America, and then we all came together.
Yeah, that's great. So it's
Yeah,
a Spanish speaking team.
it is a Spanish speaking team. Yeah,
Yeah. Brilliant. Our listeners won't necessarily be aware, but we have Korean speaking teams and Chinese speaking teams and English speaking teams, German speaking teams. So it's very diverse and multicultural, more and more so, which I love. I'm very excited to see, yeah, what God is doing by bringing more and more nations into his heart for Muslims. Has it been a good
yeah,
experience this first year for you?
yeah. It's been amazing. Honestly, it's been so good as a team. It's been really good. I haven't had any challenges. It's been really easy going. The people that I'm with have so much experience in countries like this,
Mhm.
and they are definitely not new. So I have been able to learn a lot from them, and it's been very, very good. It's been fun, and they become your family
And do you live with other team members or with a local family or?
with team members. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, great.
yeah, with women.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, I'm really desperate to ask you more about the actual country and the people you're working amongst. So yeah, tell us something about this country you're in, because right now all we know is Northern Africa. Describe, paint a picture of this nation and the people as best as you can, because we can't say too much about it because of security reasons.
Yeah, I would say that the first impression was that it was so chaotic,
Mm,
very loud, very, very loud, and I'm talking loud in the streets. There's always noise, always people screaming, always people talking really loud, fighting, lots of fighting in the streets. But it's so interesting because you see them fighting, men. They just get so angry in the cars and they get out of the cars and hit
mm.
their cars and hit each other.
Oh,
But then all of a sudden somebody comes in and says, peace. And then they say, okay, okay. And they kiss each other and leave.
wow.
It's so interesting because where I'm from in Central America, you couldn't ever separate two Latin men once they are fighting and angry. There's no way you can separate them just by saying peace.
Hmm.
So, in one way, their devotion to their religion is so much to our advantage
Mm,
because they are so desperate to follow the rules
mm,
and to honor God in their blind way
hmm.
that really honestly could really work on our favor in a way that in our countries it doesn't really work like that. I mean, once they are in the flesh, they're in the flesh, and nobody can stop them until they have let everything go. So that is one thing about it. But the other beautiful thing is it's very wealthy, and
Mm,
therefore women dress really nice with a lot of brands and lots of expensive perfume and lots of expensive jewelry and high heels. And it's all about what they wear. It's all about how beautiful you can look and nice and the trend that is going on.
mhm.
And that can also be intimidating for us that come from countries where, you go to Europe or America. I mean, you go to a store in sweatpants and a jumper, it doesn't matter. Eh,
Yeah,
We don't care
yeah,
because nobody's looking really.
yeah.
And here, everybody's looking because they have nothing else to do. So if you're not wearing the right trendy clothes, then they are going to be looking and you won't be accepted. So it's full of women that smell amazing,
Mhm.
dress amazing, their makeup is perfect.
Mm,
It's just incredible. And lots of cafes where women go and talk, and they are definitely not easy to welcome you in the beginning
mhm.
because they don't trust quick. But once they do, they are very loyal and good friends.
Why
So
do you
you
think?
have to be persistent.
Yeah, why do you think they find it difficult to trust outsiders?
I really think that it's just because of the country, the culture. They got very used to, because of what the country has been through. I think just they can't trust. They
Mm,
couldn't trust the government, so they can't trust people.
okay.
They've been abused. And I think that's just the culture, and I don't think they realize it. I think it's been passed
Mm.
on to generations and generations, and they don't realize it. They just don't trust.
So this is a country
Yeah.
where the government has not been very stable. Let's put it that way. There's been conflict. There's been a lot of upheaval, a lot of change and insecurity for people. So it's really interesting to hear you say that it's wealthy because I mean, I know where you are, but I was not really imagining a lot of wealth that you're describing. So that's quite interesting to me. I suppose, like in many countries, there's some poverty and some huge amounts of wealth, but where you are, I guess you're in a city or a town, and so you see more of that in the environment you're in. But yeah, okay. So are the women wearing veils, headscarves at all?
All of them. Most,
Okay.
I mean, of course, you have the what they call the rebellious ones, but most of them wear, and the ones that don't are, I mean, they stand out a lot and they're kind of judged.
Okay. So there is a kind of there's a head covering, there's a veil, but still lots of color, makeup, fashion that all goes together with this.
Yes, with this and really nice purses or shoes. So as
Yeah.
a foreigner, I cover when I'm in the street. Everywhere I go, I cover. I don't,
Yeah.
even though as a Hispanic person, I don't look that different to them.
Yes, that's true.
I can blend in. If they don't hear me talk, I look exactly like them. But still, I choose to cover.
Yep. Yeah, that's probably to your advantage that you can not be
Yeah,
stared at quite so much when you're just walking around.
yeah.
And what about some of the challenges of life there? Did people warn you before you came? This is going to be tough. That's going to be tough, and so on. And how was the reality?
I think a lot of people said two things in two specific subjects. Talking about the spiritual realm, they told me it's one of the most oppressive countries I've ever been. You
Mm,
will have lots of oppression, lots of spiritual warfare. You will suffer a lot of spiritual attacks. And the second, there's a lot of oppression for women. You will have no rights. You won't feel like you can say anything or do whatever. In that one, that subject, it was not very true. Maybe I came in a place where the country is better, and I
mm,
haven't experienced that. I have experienced a lot of freedom, a
mm.
lot of acceptance. Because I'm single, the moms treat me as a daughter and they call me, hey, you're my daughter. I'm going to adopt you. Here's food and feed me several
Yeah.
times a week. And young women, they treat me as a sister. And so, in that sense, and there's so many places for women to go and have fun, like cafes or bowling or
Yeah.
to the beach, to the
Mm.
park. Like women do go out, women go and do a lot of things.
Okay.
Um,
Great. Yeah.
but in the sense of the spiritual warfare, to be honest, from the background of the denomination that I come from, I didn't believe it. To tell you the truth, I mean, I heard people warning me, but in my mind and in my heart, I was like, yeah, right, whatever,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
No, like, I don't believe you, but they were right.
Mm.
And that was a big lesson for me to eat my own words,
Mm.
and be more humble next time somebody tries to warn me because they were absolutely right. I had never experienced such oppression, even nightmares, and just spiritual attacks. And in the very beginning, to be completely honest, I thought I was going crazy feeling the things that I was feeling
Mm.
because I had never felt that. I had never felt those things. And I remember that I told God, I said, okay, Lord, if you called me here and I believe that your word is true, then I do not want to live in defeat. I do
Mm.
not want to live barely surviving the spiritual attacks. Show me how to walk in victory in this. Because if you want me to stay long term, I cannot live feeling this way every day.
Yeah, can you
Um,
describe
and
a few more details of what that was like? What do you mean by spiritual attacks or nightmares? What? Yeah.
Yeah. So in the beginning, it was so weird. So I come from a country that is not even that safe. Okay. If I told you where I lived, and you could look it up. There's warnings to not go to my state because it's very dangerous. So it's not like I didn't grow up with shootings and kidnappings, and it's very dangerous where I'm from. And even in my own family, we've experienced a lot of danger. So I am familiar with that, and that had never, ever interrupted my life or stopped me from having peace.
Yeah.
That's why when I heard that, I was like, yeah, right. You don't know where I come from, but it's so different to have just instability in the government where I come from and spiritual warfare. To be more in depth about it is, I remember that the night would come, and as soon as it would get dark outside, I would have this overpowering fear that I can't even describe. In the very beginning, I had to sleep with a lamp on. I had never, not even as a kid,
Mm.
I could I could turn all the lights off and I needed my room to be completely dark. I could not sleep with just a little bit of light from the computer or AC, anything that would bother me. Here, I was so scared of the dark that I had to have a lamp. I remember that it was like I had so much anxiety that the night would come because that meant that I had nightmares. That
Mm.
nightmares were that I was being trapped. Like I would be in the ocean and I would be drowning, or I would be in a storehouse and I would be trapped and I could running and I couldn't escape. It was always me being trapped somewhere. Never with people. It was always just me by myself trapped or me and my team trapped. So because I knew nightmares were coming, I hated the night that was coming. And it was just this toxic cycle. During the day, so traffic is very chaotic. I mean, you can drive anywhere on the street that you want. There's no rules, no
Yeah.
police, no fines, no stoplights, no stop signs. There's
Okay.
nothing. So we just go. I
Yeah.
call them like cattle. It's just like literally seeing cows just move wherever they want to move, and it's cars, but they drive really fast. So it's and then that gave me lots of anger. I would just feel very angry during the day.
Yeah.
And that was really weird for me.
Mm.
And those two things, the fear, the overpowering fear and nightmares at night, and couldn't stand the darkness. And then the anger during the day was so weird for me.
Yeah.
And that's when I started talking to other people because I thought that's me. It's my hormones. Like I started trying to explain to myself that surely there's a reason of why I'm changing.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then I started talking to other people that had been there longer, and they're like, "Oh no, nope, we have the same nightmares. It's always that we're trapped. Nope,
Mm.
anger issues. It's always the same. It's always the same lies. It's always the same nightmares. Everybody that I asked, they have the same thing."
Right.
And that's when I came to my room and I told the Lord, "This is it.
Mm.
I did not come to serve you to be defeated and think this is normal. God,
Yeah.
this cannot be normal. Your blood is enough.
Yes.
Your blood is enough for the spiritual attacks. Show me how to live in victory. The reason this isn't working is not because of you, it's because I don't have a revelation on the authority that you have given us over this spiritual battle." And I had to really seek and pray so I could understand. So he took me on this beautiful journey and he said, I want you to read and write down the whole book of Ephesians,
Yeah.
verse by verse. You will write down every promise that I give you. And it'll take you a long time because you will take your time verse by verse, studying it in context. And I will show you how to walk in victory.
Mm.
It was so amazing. It took me a while to finish it. And
Yeah.
now I can look back 10 months later and I haven't slept with the lamp on. I can't remember the last time I had nightmares.
Mm.
And there's no anger in it when I drive.
Yeah.
It wasn't immediate, but it took a while. It was a journey of him
Mm.
teaching me how to overcome the strongholds in this nation.
Mm.
So it is possible. It's not normal. It's not normal to be defeated by the spiritual warfare,
Yes.
but it is normal to not have the understanding, I would say.
Wow. That's very interesting. And yeah, thank you for going into depth there, just helping us understand that. I like what you say as well. It's very easy to just go into the rational. Oh, I can explain this because of something, or yeah, there are some real things, of course, for different personalities and backgrounds, and culture shock is a very real thing, and that can produce stress and anger and so on. But when you're talking about pretty dark experiences like those nightmares, and then just a kind of raging anger that doesn't seem to disappear and can't be just explained by, well, I was exhausted and didn't sleep well, then you start asking deeper questions. And I think that's a really great and helpful for us to see how you understood there was more going on here than just the surface
Yeah.
explanations. Yeah, very good. And yeah, what a great encouragement to some of our listeners who are workers on the field who might think, yeah, that's such a good idea. Let's go through Ephesians together as a team. Why not? I mean, there's so much great stuff about being seated with Christ, the authority he's given us
Yeah.
over the powers, the armor of God, and so on. So yeah, brilliant, brilliant. Digging into the word. That's where our strength is. Yeah, the blood of Christ,
Yeah.
who we are in Christ, and the word, the promises we've been given. Just, yeah, that's exciting.
Amen.
Yeah, love it. Um, Brilliant. Any other different kinds of challenges that you've experienced? I mean, you talked about how welcoming the women have been for you, and you've actually had quite a lot of freedom in that culture, that particular part of the country you're in. Did you feel actually, even with the local men, I still have respect. I don't feel too, pressured as a single woman here, too stared at, too strange. Has that been okay?
No, they definitely stare, but because in the culture it's not appropriate for them to approach me,
I see.
they don't really come up and talk, but they do follow in the
Really?
car. Like they'll chase you around the city. Um,
That must have been a bit
so
scary
it
at
was a
first.
nice,
Yeah.
and because I was warned
Okay.
when I first arrived, one team said, "Hey, if you ever get chased down the road, you're
Hmm.
not getting kidnapped. They
Okay.
like you, and that's all it is. Like, don't be scared. It happens to
Yeah.
all the women, even if you're married or pregnant. They do that to
Okay.
them, and because they're not used to seeing anyone new. I think that's just what it is.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that definitely happens, but they do respect you. What I have seen is that yeah, they're very nice, they're very kind when I go to coffee shops or they don't really acknowledge you, they don't really look at you. Like it takes a while for them to get your order just
Mm.
because I don't want to say because I don't want to sound like that feminist movement. I don't want to say, oh, it's just because I'm a woman. I want to say that it's because of their culture. I
Hmm.
just want to say that they are honoring their culture and their code of not really acknowledging people because to them, for some odd reason, is not okay. And that's why they do it. But I don't want to sound like, oh, it's just because I'm a woman, because I don't like
Right.
that. But
Right. Or
yeah, they
just because
definitely
I'm a
don't.
foreigner. Yeah, it's easy to think, oh, this is because they don't like me, or they don't like my nationality, or my, yeah, because
Yeah.
you said because you're a woman. But that's interesting, yeah, because if you dig deeper, stay longer in the culture, you realize actually, yeah, this is how they all operate. It's not just me
Hmm.
that they're ignoring in
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I have learned, like if I talk to them respectfully, if of course, as soon as they hear my language or my Arabic, they hear my accent. As soon as they know, because I look local,
Hmm.
they treat me as a local, so they don't acknowledge me. As soon as they hear my accent in Arabic, they realize she's not from here. So then they say, "Where are you from?" And when I tell them, they're like, "Oh, the football from your country," and they start naming all these football players, and they get very excited. So then the treatment changes just
Interesting.
because
Hmm.
of my country and the football.
Yes, and you're a guest. Suddenly
That,
you become a guest in their culture, and so there
yeah,
is a lot of respect for guests in Arabic, Middle Eastern societies, in Islam as well. So yeah,
yeah.
that works in our favor too. Yeah.
I've had that it's easy to share the gospel. Um,
Mm.
Obviously not too publicly at a coffee shop, but when the people get close to you and they hear your stories, even in my classes, other teachers hear, and they're like, once they're alone, they will confess, "Hey, I have read the Joseph story.
Mm.
I've read some of the stories online. I watched Christian shows. Can you tell me more?"
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
it's so easy to pray for someone if that is an encouragement to anyone that is listening to us. If you ever encounter someone that is Muslim, as soon as you leave their presence, just offer, hey, can I just pray for you and leave peace? They will never say no, never. And that is your opportunity to mention Jesus. And they can't do anything about it because they allowed you to pray. And
Yeah.
they're usually very grateful that you pray. They'll let you pray for their businesses. They'll let you pray for any sickness that they have because they do believe in miracles. They often ask me, are you the type of Christian that believes in healing? Um, Sometimes we are too scared to operate the way we operate in our countries, but they actually they want it. They want prayer, and
Yeah,
it's easy to pray. So yeah, that's one thing I like.
that's good. Yeah. Do you have any little stories, anecdotes of just some interactions you've had with a spiritually hungry person who's just become very close to you?
I had one person, and it was really funny because it was when God was taking me on the journey of studying Ephesians. And this one person kept hearing all my stories, and we worked together, and we were very close at work. We are very close. And at the end of one of my lessons, in the environment that I work at, we have cameras and microphones because they want to make sure we're not, as foreigners, we're not doing that. So
Wow.
this person asked me to go away from the camera and the microphone, and they said, if you could preach to me, what sermon would you preach?
Wow.
Now, I want you to understand the context of where I live. That is not possible. And I have been encountered, God is so good, and it makes me even want to cry because here I am thinking, God, what do I have to offer? I have no degree. My background is just preaching. I am worthless. I really thought I am worthless in this type of work. And
Yeah.
then I encountered this person who said, I've read the Joseph story. I've heard sermons in the TV. If you could preach to me, what sermon would you choose? And so I started going, well, actually, I'm studying Ephesians, so I could tell you.
Wow.
Well, what is Ephesians? And so I explained it's a letter and blah, blah. And so I told him a little bit, and this person was so shocked, and they were like, okay, that's enough. I need to think about this. And then they left. And 2 weeks later, they were like, okay, but why Christ? And they just had more questions and more questions. And it was so easy. Then this person had an accident and hurt their back so bad. And I was able to pray, and the pain was gone.
Mm.
So have they come to Christ? No, not yet. Have
Mhm.
they accepted to study the Bible? Not yet. But they've seen the power of God.
Mm.
And now they have a healing that they cannot deny.
Mhm.
So,
You're on a journey.
yeah,
Yeah. And who knows? Yeah, you may play a little part in that journey or a big part. You've already played quite a big part. But yeah, that's really cool. And I love that because actually throughout the Middle East, there are so many Muslims who watch Sat 7 TV programs. They listen to Christian preachers. Yeah, and on a previous episode, I had a Palestinian lady talking about how she came to faith through Christian TV. But they need to be discipled. They need somebody to meet. And actually, she did a lot of chat rooms as well. But so wonderful when there's somebody on the ground, a real person, a real Christian they can meet and talk to you and get more answers to their personal questions. Yeah. Ria, this is so good. Thank you. You've given us a brilliant picture as to where you are in these first few months and how God's using you. Yeah, it's not about our background, training, education. It's about being willing to serve the Lord, listen to Him, and yeah, just be there for people, isn't it? That's the important thing. Just being in Christ and being Him to other people. But yeah, any final thoughts? Any final scriptures that have sustained you, or Bible stories that have come alive because of what you're doing now? Anything else you want to leave us with? Any encouragements?
I think I would love to close with, first of all, thanking you for allowing me to have this awesome conversation. And second, sometimes we get so fixated because we are trying to adapt and we're so busy at times learning the language and everything. Sometimes some people think, well, do I invest in everybody or do I pray to see who I'm going to invest in because I have to be wise with my time? Well, this person isn't really ready, so I won't really. I think we can get so caught up in how much But one scripture that has really sustained me has been the story of the sower of the seed, and how he planted the seed in the ground that had thorns, and then the other one that had rocks, and then the other one that was just on the road, and then the wind took it away, and then it was in the good ground and it did produce fruit. But the sower still planted in every single type of ground.
Yeah.
And whether it was in rocks or thorns or the wind blew it away or whatever took it away, I think it's not our job to decide what kind of ground we get to choose. I think that we are here for however God allows us to be here. And we just have to take advantage of every opportunity and not judge the ground, because the word is the word. And we have to just plant the seeds, and God will take care of the rest, and just be led by the Spirit.
That's
I
right.
would also say that we are on the winning team, that no matter the strongholds of every nation that we may be in, his blood was shed on the cross, and it is enough. His blood is enough for us to overcome by the word of his testimony. And so whatever they're going through, whoever is listening, I think that his blood is enough, and we are going to be okay, and we are on the winning team.
Amen. Yeah, that is wonderful. And I know your environment is a lot tougher than even we've been able to express today. There are many dangers around you. So praise God for your faithfulness. That's a great word to end on. Jesus is the victory. The victory is ours. We know the end of the story, and we're not just looking for human fruit, or things to be proud of ourselves. We trust him for the fruit as much as we trust him for our lives and our provision and our joy in the midst of whatever environment we live in. Yeah, brilliant. Ria, thank you so much for your time. And I'm just so excited by the Latinos more and more heading to the field in our organization and many other organizations too. So praise God that, the global church is responding to the huge needs across the Middle East and other countries. So thank you. Yeah, God bless you. And
thank you.
See you again soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us today, guys. For more, check us out on our website, frontiers.org.uk, and on all social media platforms @FrontiersUK. Have a great week, and make sure you don't miss our next episode.